Sabah everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about the Galaxy Note 20. The last couple of weeks, we saw a lot of coverage on the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, and that's because Samsung sent out the Note 20 Ultras for review. Well, if you're thinking about the Galaxy Note 20, arguably, by the way, one of the most flag-receiving Note devices since the Note 7, and that's because some of the decisions that were made by Samsung on the Note 20, a $1,000 phone, are a little bit controversial, and we'll talk about them. We'll go ahead and compare the Note 20 5G and the Note 20 Ultra 5G to each other and start looking at some of those compromises. And is it something that you should be concerned about, or is the Note 20 still an actual kick-ass device that you should consider in 2020 and maybe wait a little bit for the price to drop? You know, because that's how it is. This is TK. Let's go ahead and talk about this comparison between the Note 20 and the Note 20 Ultra. Like and subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So here we have it, both the Note 20 here in green and the Note 20 Ultra in white. One thing I do want to mention to you guys is, first and foremost, the material that we saw on the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra before, that's more of the goldish color, that fingerprint resistant material, not present here on the white one. Actually, this is pretty much reflective as what we saw last year with the Note 10. On the actual Note 20, although this is made out of plastic, it actually does carry that material, which is a little bit more fingerprints, I would say resistant, but not prone. You could definitely see them right there. Something to do with the fact that when they get with plastic on the back here, it definitely changed a few things. We'll go ahead and do a comparison with the specifications, but first and foremost, we're going to start talking about the first thing that a lot of people were bagging about, and that's the actual back. So first things first, here, the Note 20 Ultra is made with this is glass, Gorilla Glass 7 on both the front and on the back. On the Note 20, they decided on a $1,000 phone to go with plastic. No idea why. The material is still coated. It still tries to look like as if it's the glass back with that same shimmer or the same finish as the more expensive Note 20 Ultra, but the material is very different. We still have wireless charging. We also see that the camera setup on the back is definitely very different, which is understandable. The Note 20 and the Note 20 Ultra should have some differences. The power button and the volume rocker were present on the top left, and that meant that the actual stylus was present on the bottom right. Now this is reversed. The bottom left is for the stylus, and the volume rocker and the power and the Bixby button are present up there. You can remap the Bixby button. It's not something that you have to stick with. And first and foremost, obviously, before we go too far, let's go ahead and open up both displays. You can definitely see that both of them are absolutely fantastic displays. The difference, obviously, is we're looking, this is a 1080p 60 Hz refresh rate. This is a QHD 120 Hz refresh rate. Although, keep in mind, the 120 Hz refresh rate only runs at 1080p. So in reality, if you're going to enjoy the best performance on the Note 20 Ultra for the refresh rate, you're running both of them on 1080p. The difference in size, 6.7 to 6.9 inches, a very small difference in size, but still very nice. Also, the display here is slightly different. We have a flat display on the Note 20 as opposed to a curved edge display on the Note 20 Ultra. The Note 10 from last year still had the curved edge and the glass front and back. The Note 20 now, for some reason, is becoming more of a very different device than the Note 20 Ultra. Both of them have that flat top, as of course. Both in the US will only carry one SIM card, although the SD card support is only on the Ultra. Also, both in the US are carrying the Snapdragon 865 Plus, meaning it's an upgrade from the Galaxy S20 that we saw earlier this year. It's an improvement in performance, 8 gigs of RAM on the Note 20 to 12 gigs of RAM on the Note 20 Ultra, starting storage at 128 gigs, and of course we can expand it here, although we cannot do that on the Note 20. As far as the actual placement, again, both have the same placement on that end. On the top, same microphones. On the left, pretty much clean slate. And of course, on the bottom, we have the silo for the S Pen, and we'll talk a little bit about the performance difference, because there actually is a performance difference between these two. The bottom firing speaker that's married with the earpiece at the top to give us stereo speakers with Dolby configuration. Of course, USB-C for audio, as well as charging and, of course, data transfer, bottom microphone, and, of course, some of the antenna bands. One thing to note that both of these devices, the $1,000 and $1,300 version, will not include a pair of headphones in the US, meaning the USB-C style headphones are not included in the box. And when I contacted Samsung, their answer was very simple. They want people to start using wireless headphones. And that's a great way to say it, but when you don't include anything in the box, it's hard. Also, the spacing in the box is still there to show that there's something missing, meaning there's an open casing in there that looks like the headphones should have been in there, which means, again, in the other markets they're sending them. If you contact Samsung, just ask them very nicely and they'll be sending you a pair of headphones for free, expedited. So not an issue, it's just not included this time, and I feel like this is going to be the way going forward. So the S30, the Note 30, all of those will no longer include headphones, and they want you to actually pick up obviously the wireless, the Galaxy Buds Live or the Galaxy Buds Plus. Great headphones, did some coverage for you guys there, and definitely something you should pay attention to. One thing that we still need to talk about, obviously, is that camera hump. The Note 20 Ultra has a massive camera hump that actually just levitates. It almost looks like I have something attached to the back of my phone, where the Note 20 doesn't have that much. It's actually very nice and doesn't protrude as much. Battery difference as well is 4,500 milliamperes to 4,300 milliamperes. Although this is an Ultra, it's actually 500 milliamperes smaller than what we saw with the Galaxy S20 Ultra. So which is a little bit of an interesting decision. The Ultras should be, in my opinion, the Note 20 Ultra should be basically the best that we can get at the end of 2020. And I feel like the S20 Ultra still beats it when it comes to battery capacity, as well as the fact that, they both support fast charging, they both support reverse wireless charging, they both have a 108 megapixel sensor, which, by the way, that little extra area there with the laser autofocusing did fix the autofocusing issue, or the focus hunting that we've had with the S20 Ultra. When talking about the actual cameras that we have here, we're a slightly different configuration. We have a 108 megapixel sensor at f1.8, two 12 megapixel sensors. One is a telephoto, the other one is an ultra wide at 120 degrees field of view. Now, the front-facing camera is a 10 megapixel front-facing camera at f2.2. Surprisingly, it's the actual same camera on the front-facing device here on the Galaxy Note 20. Now, the Note 20 has a slightly different configuration. We have the 64 megapixel, which is going to be basically your telephoto. The 12 is a primary, and 12 megapixels is ultra wide, and 10 megapixels is going to be for the front facing. It's, again, a little bit of a different decision there. Both running the Snapdragon 865 Plus. Both start at 128 gigs of internal storage, although the memory is 8 gigs here as well, as opposed to 12 gigs starting there. Expandable on the storage here with an SD card with a 4500 milliampere battery, USB-C, fast charging with the 45 watt charger sold separately. They include the 25. And of course, pretty much the same exact configuration here. Main difference that we're looking in, again, essentially is 6.7 flat 1080p AMOLED display, running at 60 Hz, to a 6.9 QHD dynamic AMOLED, which means they did something that is also very interesting, where they changed from the Galaxy S20 Ultra, which they gave us in the S20 Ultra the ability of selecting 1080p at 120, so that's how it runs, or we ran at QHD. We're able to go into the settings, we'll go into the display. So we're able to use the screen mode, which is the Vivid, obviously. So here we can actually pick up the options. So we can actually go into screen resolution, that's full HD plus, that's the 1080p resolution. And that's pretty much the only way for us to be able to select that higher refresh rate. So motion smoothness, it's under adaptive, meaning it's an auto mode. We don't have a way of actually leaving it at 120. So in a way, it does actually help us save battery, but I think this was done specifically because this has a smaller battery than the S20 Ultra. That one has a 5000 milliampere. That extra 500 milliampere difference could have been a difference of being able to actually select QHD with 120. Again, something that we've seen on other devices that are cheaper than the Galaxy S20 Ultra or even the Note 20 Ultra. Now, when it comes to internal storage performance, I do want to mention that, which is really nice, is that we don't have a big difference at all, actually. They're pretty much the same. They're using the same type of memory on the internal storage, at least in the US variant here, the ones running the Qualcomm processors. One thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, that if you're purchasing this in Europe or even in the Middle East, you're going to be using the Exynos processor, and that's the Exynos 990, same processor that we saw with the S20 line of devices. And when it comes to benchmarks, I did actually run the CPU as well as the compute benchmark on both of these devices, just to kind of show you guys again, there's not a really big difference in these two. So we'll go into history. So here we'll play the compute. So here's the CPU first. Actually, we'll start. So 955 to 961, 3224 to 3148. Again, slightly different performance here. Could also be because this is running at 1080p at Q8 at the 120 Hertz, and it did change. But overall, performance is roughly about the same. I wouldn't necessarily say that one is better than the other. When we go into the compute section, pretty much again, roughly about the same, 3499 to 3544. It's about a 44. I would say if I had to err on the side of margin, I would probably say that pretty much a very small difference between the two. Again, not really a big difference when you pick either the Note 20 or the Note 20 Ultra. So you're still getting a powerhouse of a device here. Now, these devices wouldn't be Notes if they didn't have an S Pen. Both have the S Pen. Both support the same new gestures that we've seen with S Pens. And so essentially, if I hold the phone and I just do the scribble here, it'll do the screen write, and I can do here, same thing, and it does the screen grab. Both of them have that same functionality. They all obviously match the color, so they're no longer giving us one color for everything. So my white Note 20 Ultra will have a white S Pen, and of course the green one comes with a green one. It's nice, very good, and I love the matching. Coincidentally, the cables and the chargers in the box match the coloring as well. The only difference is this one got that black charger and cable, and this one actually did receive a white charger and cable. But what I wanted to talk to you guys about is that there was a note, obviously an announcement saying that the Note 20 Ultra, because of the higher refresh rate, has a better performing S Pen, meaning the traceability of the S Pen on the phone actually runs much better whenever we're tracing on it. So an example would be basically if we traced our pen on the screen, this should be something that we can notice with our own eyes. So first, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to show you an example of me writing TK on both of them, and I want to see if you guys can pick it up on normal. This is 1080p 30 frames per second. Can you see that with your eyes, that this one is faster than this one? So let's go ahead and do this. So here it is, TK, and then we'll do it here. And I'm going to go ahead and erase this, and I'm just going to use the same marker. So very much the same. And by the way, the S Pens are interchangeable. There's no difference between the two. What you saw there, essentially, from an experience of just looking at it with your own eyes, there's really not much of a difference. The response on both of these guys are going to be very, very good, and you can barely see. So you can see here right there, the line tracing, everything works great. Here, same thing. It's very hard for us to see that basically there's a big delay. So let's go ahead and start talking and actually take a look at a quick slow motion video that I did of both of these devices so that we can actually see if there is really a delay. First thing we're going to do here, this is a Note 20 Ultra. I'm using obviously my trusty iPhone here because that's the third device that I had sitting on my desk. And what I did here essentially is I recorded it at HD 240 frames per second, and I was just tracing the pen. So let's go ahead and play this video real quick so you guys can see that. The big difference that you're noticing here is that the actual refresh rate, the 120 refresh rate on the display, is actually quite good. Not only does it catch up to the pen, and I'm actually gliding. This is not me writing this slow. I just slowed the video down for you guys to be able to see the difference. So I go off screen, I get back on screen, and you can see that even though it's trailing, it's very, very close to where the tip is on the display. This is again the Note 20 Ultra with the brand new S Pen and a higher refresh rate on the Note 20. So this kind of shows us roughly what the performance is on the Note 20 Ultra. Let's go ahead and switch over to the Note 20. So the Note 20 has a 60 Hz refresh rate with a 1080p panel. But again, that shouldn't really be a big difference. You saw it in the hands-on. It looks very much the same when I wrote on both displays, one or the other. But let's go ahead and see on the slow motion, how does the actual performance happen? So here, when I start making content directly on the display and I start typing, or actually writing, you could see the trail. The trail is a little bit longer, and it definitely takes a second for it to catch up. Not a big difference visually, but of course, when we slow it down to 240 frames per second, this is something that we'll be able to start seeing on our device. It's not a big issue, it's not a big problem. And what you're seeing here essentially, again, it's just quickly, and it does catch up. Normal day-to-day usage, not going to be a problem at all. So I wouldn't really sweat it. I did want to show it to you guys because they did mention it, and I didn't want them to say basically, that wasn't true. That actually is true. The refresh rate on the display will translate into better performance on the pen. Does it actually show when you're using it? Absolutely not. Your eyes cannot catch it because it's running so fast. Again, we'll do it one more time. Here we are. You can definitely not see, and I'm going very fast, that this line is delayed. It catches up very, very quickly. It's just that, yes, at a very slow pace, if you slow down the video, you can catch it, but I don't think it's a big issue. So from a performance of an S Pen, I don't think this is going to be a deal breaker. This is definitely still a very powerful device. So what I decided to do, I went ahead and took a few pictures there, obviously to be able to do a quick comparison. So here's a couple of pictures. We took a flower next to us. Again, primary shooter here is a different sensor. So we're obviously going to be looking at maybe a worse performance, and nothing really good. But at the end of the day, realistically, both cameras did really good. Now, I would say definitely that the bokeh effect is much stronger here because of the larger sensor. So I went ahead and took over another picture right there. We're using the ultra wide lens, and then we used the telephoto lens. Again, very comparable performance between the two. So I went ahead and did a quick single shot here, and of course, as you can imagine, it does the exact same thing. It takes a quick picture between the two. You can see right there, these are the different color images. Obviously, the images are different because obviously it's going to pick different algorithms running here. But the good thing about it is that you're able to show the video and, of course, select the one that you want. Performance on the cameras, surprisingly, is actually very similar as far as versions of what you're getting. So if we jump over here on the back, both of them support the Pro mode, by the way. We'll go ahead and jump into the settings. Both of them will support a high resolution recording in the back. So here, rear resolution recording 16. So here, the 16:9 8K 24 frames per second. If we go down to the 16:9, we're able to go 4K 60, 4K 60. Again, what you would expect, everything is exactly, for the most part, the same. Front-facing camera, maximum resolution will be 4K at 60 frames per second, so UHD 60 frames per second, and it's the same thing here. Keep in mind we're running the same sensor on the front, 10 megapixel sensor. Now, when we go into the Pro mode, this is where we're able to use Pro Video. It only works on the back sensor, and that's why we have 8K 4K 60, and of course 8K at 24 frames per second here between the two, the 21:9 aspect ratio and the 16:9 aspect ratio. So a lot more options in here. And just to keep in mind, this is where you're able to configure these things in advance. Now, if you go under the more section, obviously we have night shot, which we'll talk a little bit about as well. I'm going to show you guys a couple of pictures right now. Just how the performance of night mode is on both of these. It does kick in automatically if you have the auto scene detection turned on. If not, you can go in here and select it. And you can definitely see it it's getting pretty close to pixel performance, I have to say. The other really cool thing is under photo video, pro video, is the ability of actually customizing a few things. Here under the microphones, we're able to select omnidirectional front facing. So omnidirectional will be all microphones, front facing or rear facing microphones, or even Bluetooth. And what I mean for that, I'll go ahead and open up my Galaxy Buds Live. I'll give them a second to connect. It'll go ahead and connect to my Note 20 Ultra. And it'll only actually let you select them once you have the earphones on. So once they're detected that they're connected. And so the big difference, again, both of them support this feature. It is only available in Pro mode and sadly only available on the back sensors, which means you have to actually compose your pictures, set it up, and configure everything before you go away. You notice use night mode here is turned on because of scene detection, and everything else works the same. The other option obviously is we're going to talk about that autofocusing. So let's go ahead and bring it in. I mentioned to you guys at the beginning of this video is that they fixed the autofocusing issue here, and they did a really good job. I'm going to show you actually a clip that I used from my video last week that I did over at the Arboretum, where I was showing the autofocusing system there. It made us appreciate having such a large sensor, and of course the ability of focusing with it very quickly. The 100 times space zoom is no longer there here, but this is something that you'd want to be able to basically just enjoy. It maxes out now at 50, so no more 100. So let's go ahead and zoom out. You can definitely see right there 50 here on the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, and on the Galaxy Note 20 is up to 30. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, when you go down to the actual system here, so let's go ahead and jump, let's go ahead and give it a second. We'll go to video, we'll jump back. So here, under photo, the wide angle lens is 0.5, and they're both at the same, but when you go into the telephoto, it's 0.5 here, so 5x to 3x, and that's using the telephoto lenses that we have here. Again, scene detection, S-Pen is obviously detached. I'll go ahead and put it in. Again, a lot of things that we see here are very much comparable in the performance. Last thing we're going to talk about obviously here is I'm going to give you guys some samples on both the front-facing camera and the back-facing sensors on both of these devices. So this is a quick sample of the main sensor on the brand new Galaxy Note 20 Ultra. Again, we're shooting at 4K 60 frames per second, not 8K, mostly because 8K is intended to be for more, I would say, nature type of shots. But 4K 60 frames per second is of course capable here, although keep in mind only available on the main sensor. The other two sensors do not share the 4K 60, they get 4K 30. So we'll start off with a quick sample of the main sensor on the back here. Again, 4K 60 frames per second as well as 8K. Pretty much similar to what we have on the Note 20 Ultra, although we have a different camera setup here, which we'll talk a little bit more as we get back into the hands-on. But again, should be a pretty good example. Let's go ahead and switch over to the front-facing camera. Now, one thing can be said that we definitely have a wider view on the front-facing camera, 4K 60 frames per second as well, and of course that is the actual maximum resolution we have on the front. Now there's a couple of more modes in the Pro mode which enable us to not only use the ability of actually using Bluetooth headphones natively in there as an actual audio source, so that's something else you're also able to do. Also the ability of actually setting up the configuration of the microphones, meaning I can actually configure it so that the microphone works either on the front or the back, enabling us to basically have it more of a focused audio experience. So we'll go ahead and switch over to that, and then of course we're going to set the microphones because I'm pretty sure you guys can hear the air conditioning on the other side. Now we're using the front-facing sensor, again 4K 60 frames per second, so pretty much a similar experience. And of course we're not using the Pro mode yet. We'll get to that of course with the audio experience there, but no 8K on the front, only 8K on the primary sensor in the back. Now the Pro mode does allow us to do some of the new functions that we have here, as well as the ability of focusing the microphones and of course using Bluetooth audio. Now we're using the Pro mode camera application available here, and I'm using the audio directly from the microphones on the phone. I did set them to work only on the back sensor, so meaning it's only going to pick up most of the audio from the front of the camera, so where you're looking at me right now. The air conditioner is actually sitting about 20 to 30 feet away from me, all the way on the other side, so hopefully a lot less, and of course 4K 60 frames per second as usual. And of course we can also go up to 8K in the Pro mode, although stabilization kind of drops. Again, Bluetooth headphones are an option in the Pro mode, as well as configuring the microphones either the front or the back for more that focused experience. So I went ahead and switched over to the Pro mode now. We have the microphone set up to basically face me, the same way we did it with the Note 20 Ultra. The main difference, of course, is I shut off any audio from the back, so it's supposed to focus on me, and hopefully we're not listening, or you guys don't hear that air conditioner that's sitting about 20 to 30 feet away from me. Let me know, of course, in the comments below, what do you guys think of the audio from the brand new Galaxy Note 20? Now that we have the video part of this done, essentially let's talk about audio. Both of them have stereo speakers. Both support, stereo speakers using Dolby Atmos. So let's go ahead and scroll over. Dolby Atmos is configured right there, and of course, let me just bring it over here. Dolby Atmos is right there. If I press and hold them on both, we should be able to basically see the same configuration. Turning it on auto. That's pretty much what we would expect. So what we're going ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and play a song. Now, obviously, this is just purely to see the performance. I wouldn't recommend you playing this for a very long time. Volume level up 100% on both of them. This is called Jumbo by Alex Scrindo. It's a non-copyright song. And I'm going to play the song again for both of them, and so you guys can actually make a decision and see that there is really not big of a difference. Price difference is $300, but we're still getting a kick-ass device here when it comes to the Note 20. So let's go ahead and start off with the Note 20. So that was 17 seconds. Go ahead and do the same.
Jack it up.
Now, comparing them together, obviously there's a slight advantage here to the Note 20 Ultra. I can definitely hear that it's a little bit fuller, but not a big difference where it actually becomes something that I would say that this is so much better than the Note 20. I would still say both of them are very capable, very, very good devices to perform. So what I'm trying to say from the beginning of the video to right now is that the Note 20 is a powerhouse of a device. It's still something that if you're thinking about getting a Galaxy Note 20 in 2020, this is something to actually consider getting. It still has 5G, the same processor, the performance is very close, internal storage is pretty much the same. The only thing I would probably say is if you're not happy with the base storage, make sure to buy a little bit bigger one because of the fact, again, no expandable storage there. The battery on both of these guys are definitely not exactly the biggest batteries that we have on the market. 43 on the Note 20, and of course 45 on the Note 20 Ultra. You notice that the difference between the two is very small, like 6.7 inches to 6.9. It's bigger than what we've had them in the past. The S Pen still has a lot of cool functionalities. I think the cameras on the back are actually pretty good cameras for when they're offering us. I mean, we're not really all dying to do 50 times zoom on our cameras. This is still going to perform well. The 60 Hz refresh rate on the 1080p panel I think is good. I think that's probably going to cause this device to drop in price much faster than the Note 20 Ultra, but that could be a savings for you as well. I would say at the end of the day, the Note 20 is a good device. The quality on the material on the back should not have been plastic, but we are where we are. And if we are going to put a case on this device, I don't think even anybody will notice the difference. The case will protect it and you'll get all the protection that you normally expect there. The flat display was actually a positive thing for me. I've noticed this, and even OnePlus used to do this in the past. They used to give the Note 20, the OnePlus 7 and the OnePlus 7 Pro, the flat display to the OnePlus 7 and obviously the curved edge display to the OnePlus 7 Pro. And I feel like that's a good choice. If you want a flat display on a Galaxy Note 20, you now actually have an option where you didn't even have that last year with the Note 10. So a lot of things to cover. Obviously, there'll be more coverage here on the channel. Please let me know in the comments below. Are you on team, the Note 20 should not even exist in this world, or are you on the team of, no, actually, this is a device that makes sense, and I hope my video was able to shed some light into that. I know there's been a lot of coverage on the Note 20 Ultra, but the Note 20 needs to have its time in the limelight. Thank you very much for the support. Like and subscribe as usual, and of course, I'll see you guys in the next video.